The morning began like any other. Birds sang, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The sun, a comforting warmth on his skin, promised a day like any other. The man stretched, enjoying the feel of the sun, completely unaware of the horror that would soon engulf the world. He decided to stroll down to the river. It was a day for simple pleasures, for enjoying the tranquility that nature offered. Along the water's edge, dragonflies danced. The man breathed deeply, the air clean and sweet. The man smiled. Life was good. But as he continued his walk, a shiver ran down his spine. The air, once warm, had grown cold. The birdsong ceased, replaced by an unnerving silence. He looked up at the sun, but something was wrong. A shadow, vast and unnatural, was spreading across the sky. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced his heart. This was no ordinary day. The world grew darker, the sun vanishing behind the encroaching shadow. The temperature plummeted. The man, his breath catching in his throat, watched in terror as the sky turned an eerie, sickly yellow. Panic rose within him, a primal scream building in his chest. Something was terribly wrong. The once familiar woods around him seemed to twist and contort, the trees becoming menacing silhouettes against the unnatural twilight. The air grew heavy, thick with a strange metallic scent. He had to get out. He had to run. His feet moved before his mind could catch up, his body propelled by a primal fear he couldn't comprehend. The ground beneath him seemed to vibrate, a low hum resonating through his bones. The last vestiges of light were swallowed by the encroaching darkness. The sky, now a canvas of absolute black, pressed down on him, suffocating him with its wrongness. In the distance, he heard a sound that chilled him to his core. A low growl, guttural and full of malice. It was a sound that spoke of nightmares made flesh, of ancient horrors unleashed upon the world. He ran blindly, his heart pounding against his ribs. The forest floor seemed to reach up, grasping at his feet, eager to trip him, to hold him fast in this nightmare. He pushed himself harder, driven by the sheer terror that clawed at his sanity. The growls were closer now, a chorus of bestial hunger that echoed through the unnatural night. Shadows moved at the edge of his vision, grotesque mockeries of living things. They writhed and pulsed, their forms indistinct yet undeniably malevolent. He stumbled, crashing to the ground, the taste of dirt filling his mouth. Panic threatened to overwhelm him. He had to get up. He had to keep moving. The growls were getting closer. He scrambled back to his feet, his lungs burning, his legs screaming for respite. But there was no time to rest. Not now, not with those things closing in. He had to find safety. He had to find something. They burst from the undergrowth, hideous monstrosities that defied description. Their bodies, a patchwork of scales and fur, pulsed with a sickly phosphorescent glow. Their eyes, devoid of pupils, burned with an infernal light, reflecting the terror that consumed him. Their claws, like blades forged in the heart of a dying star, scraped against the ground, sending sparks flying. The stench of decay and rot clung to them, a suffocating miasma that made his stomach churn. He had never felt such pure primal fear. His mind reeled, trying to rationalize the impossible, to make sense of the nightmare unfolding before him. But there was no rationalizing this. There was only survival. He turned and ran, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The creatures gave chase, their inhuman shrieks echoing through the forest, a testament to the horror that had been unleashed upon the world. As he ran, he noticed something peculiar. The creatures, monstrous as they were, seemed to shy away from the trees. They moved around them, hesitant, almost afraid. He clung to that small sliver of hope. If the trees offered some kind of protection, then he needed to stay close to them. He needed to find... Section 5. running for his life. His eyes, adjusting to the unnatural darkness, caught a faint glow in the distance. It was a tree, its bark shimmering with an ethereal light, a beacon of hope in the heart of the encroaching darkness. He changed direction, his legs heavy, his lungs burning. The creatures were still on his heels, their growls a constant threat. The glow from the tree intensified as he drew closer, bathing the surrounding woods in an otherworldly light. The creatures hesitated at the edge of this radiance, their eyes narrowed, their growls laced with frustration and something akin to fear? He didn't slow down. He couldn't. He pushed himself harder, his on the glowing tree, his only hope in this nightmare. He burst into the clearing surrounding the tree, collapsing at its base, gasping for air, his body racked with exhaustion and terror. The creatures, their forms silhouetted against the eerie glow of the tree, paced back and forth just beyond the reach of its light. They snarled and snapped, their frustration palpable, but they wouldn't or couldn't approach. He was safe for now. Section 6. A beacon in the darkness. He looked up at the tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like grasping claws. The light it emanated pulsed gently, casting flickering shadows that danced and writhed like flames. It was a sight both beautiful and terrifying, a testament to the strange and terrible power that had gripped the world. He dragged himself closer to the trunk, pressing his back against its rough bark. The light emanating from the tree seemed to wrap around him, a warm, comforting presence in the face of the encroaching darkness. He closed his eyes, his chest heaving, his mind a maelstrom of fear and confusion. How had this happened? What were those things? And what was the significance of this glowing tree? The questions swirled in his mind, offering no answers, only deepening the mystery that shrouded the world. He knew instinctively that this tree was important. It was a beacon, a sanctuary in this new, terrifying reality. But for how long? How? As his breathing slowed and his heart rate steadied, he began to notice details about his surroundings. The air within the clearing hummed with an unseen energy. The leaves of the tree, far from being still, rippled and flowed as if caressed by an invisible breeze. He touched the bark of the tree, surprised by its warmth. It felt alive, pulsing with an energy that seemed to resonate deep within him. A sense of peace, alien yet comforting, began to spread through him. It was as if the tree itself was offering him protection, shielding him from the horrors that stalked the night. He looked up through the branches of the tree, searching for a glimpse of the sky, for any sign of the sun. But there was nothing. Only the oppressive blackness, a void where the heavens should be. He was trapped in a world consumed by darkness, a world where monstrous creatures roamed free, and the very laws of nature seemed to have been rewritten. But here, within the embrace of this strange, glowing tree, he was safe. For now. As the night wore on, the man felt a strange pull towards the tree. It was as if it was trying to communicate with him, to tell him its secrets. He leaned against its trunk, closing his eyes, and listened. At first, there was nothing but the sound of his own ragged breathing and the pounding of his heart. But slowly, faintly, he began to hear something else. Whispers. They seemed to emanate from the tree itself, ancient voices carried on the wind. He couldn't make out the words, but he could feel their power, their age. It was the language of magic, of forgotten lore, of things best left undisturbed. He remembered tales his grandfather used to tell him, stories of a time when magic was real, when mythical creatures roamed the earth. Tales of ancient beings with the power to blot out the sun, to unleash darkness upon the world. Tales that he had dismissed as mere superstition. Now, surrounded by the impossible, he was forced to reconsider. Perhaps those stories were more than just legends. Perhaps they were warnings from a forgotten past. warnings that had been ignored for far too long. He spent the rest of the night huddled at the base of the glowing tree, listening to the whispers that swirled around him, trying to decipher their meaning. The creatures remained at the edge of the clearing, their glowing eyes fixed on him, their presence a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the reach of the light. As dawn approached, or what should have been dawn, the tree's light began to fade. The creatures grew bolder, edging closer, their growls laced with anticipation. He knew that he couldn't stay here forever. The tree wouldn't protect him once the light was gone. He looked around at the darkened forest, fear gripping his heart. He was alone, lost in a world that had been turned upside down. He had no idea where he was going or what he would do. But one thing was certain, he couldn't stay here. He had to keep moving to find a way to survive in this new, terrifying reality. But where could he go? What hope did he have in a world where the sun no longer rose? He pushed himself to his feet, his body stiff and sore. The creatures sensed his intention to leave, and they backed away slightly, their eyes gleaming with a malevolent amusement, as if they knew something he didn't. He took a deep breath and stepped out of the protective embrace of the tree. The moment he did, a cold dread washed over him. The creatures snarled, their bodies tensing, ready to pounce. He knew that he was no match for them in a fight. His only hope was to run, to use his wits and agility to outmaneuver them. He bolted into the forest, the creatures' shrieks echoing behind him. He could hear them crashing through the undergrowth, their pursuit relentless. He didn't dare look back. He knew that if they caught him, he ran until his lungs burned and his legs screamed for mercy. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Not while those things were hunting him. He was a fugitive in his own world, hunted by creatures from a nightmare. And as he ran, he realized with a sickening certainty that this was only the beginning. The day the sun disappeared was not the end. It was the start of a new era, an era of darkness and fear. And he was trapped in it.